Hello and welcome to the Maxi Geek Show. This is episode number 2. Friday the 21st of January is the date. And let's be honest, this has been one crazy week is probably the nicest way we can say that at the moment. It's it's one of those things where, I wasn't expecting massive news this week. News is always coming through, but never to the extent that this did. So, yeah. We're going to get stuck into some of the smaller things first, because obviously there is a big topic we're going to get to. But let's talk about something a bit lighter at the moment. So one of the things that Nintendo have done recently is, for the Nintendo Switch Online services, they have been doing, every 3 months they would drop 3 or 4 titles, and then we wouldn't hear from them again. Not long after the release of the games, we knew more games were coming. We found out Paper Mario was coming in December, and that was a bit of a shock because we weren't expecting it. But then when it released, they told us, hey, Banjo-Kazooie's coming in January, and that really threw everyone for a loop. Today, Banjo-Kazooie is now available for Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack owners or subscribers. But what's interesting is that they confirmed today that The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is coming in February, as is their want. Let me refresh that so it loads up the actual proper tweet thing. As is their want, we're not getting a date yet. But yeah, so we're getting that in February, which is an interesting thing. We could see it sometime, in the, I suppose, the early part of February. We got Paper Mario back in on December 11, but we got Banjo-Kazooie on January 21st. So, if we sort of ballpark that middle ground, we're probably looking anywhere from the 10th to the 20th of February. Which is an interesting thing. I am all for them doing more of these, monthly releases of content. But I do wish they would do more with their, what's the word? With the NES and Super NES. If February comes around and they drop 3 more titles for the Super NES and 1 more for the NES or something, that's fine. Obviously, they're not going to be great titles because they never are, but I'd really prefer them to start doing, hey, once a month you're going to get 1 NES, 1 Super NES, 1 N64, 1 Mega Drive. That's what I'd like them to do. Something else that I wanted to point out. So over the past 2 weeks, essentially, I've been putting out what I'm saying are these. What is this publisher up to? And the one that I sort of wanted to highlight today was Ubisoft. I've got them for Warner Brothers, EA, PlayStation, Activision, Nintendo, all of them. The reason why I wanted to highlight Ubisoft is just because of the sheer number of studios that they have that most people probably wouldn't be aware of. Now, sometimes they call them Ivory Tower. Sometimes they'll call it Ubisoft Ivory Tower. I don't know why they vary there, but that's what they do. The reason why I wanted to call it out is obviously we're expecting to see the Avatar game this year. That is dated for a 2022 release. We don't know any other details other than that, and then this first trailer. There is a tech video that's out, so they don't show anything, but they talk about the tech and how it allows them to build the world, all the foliage and things like that. So there's that to look forward to. The other interesting thing is that Avatar is being built on Snowdrop, which is the same engine that powers The Division 1 and 2, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and a few other games that Ubisoft make. Ubisoft have a few engines internally that they use, and Snowdrop is one of them. But if I scroll down, where are they? Ubisoft Da Nang. So I didn't realize that they had a studio in Vietnam, but they do. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting this studio specifically is because they have a platform called Ubisoft Nano. So Ubisoft Nano is the best way I can describe it is it's kind of like the old Newgrounds. The Newgrounds, like Flash sort of games, things like that. What I will do is, let me just swap to the video. This is one of the games available for Ubisoft Nano. Right, it's basically just Bomberman. But you know, they've got games. They've got games for that, you know, are based around Trackmania, Assassin's Creed, you know, the Rabbids and all that sort of stuff. It's just nano.ubisoft.com. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting thing that they were doing, in that they were sort of offering up this unique look of you know, their IP in a way that most people wouldn't even know about. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to be registered in any way to play them. And you can play them on your phone, you know, iPad, or your computer. I suppose technically you could probably get away with playing them like on your Xbox through their browser, but yeah, I don't know that for sure, so we won't confirm that here. The other bit of the news this week, which came sort of out of nowhere, I say out of nowhere, it was part of an NFL stream. NFL match. It was one of their things during the show. That Moonlight, the next Marvel Cinematic Universe TV series, got its first full trailer, and more importantly, its release date, and that is actually coming on March 30th. So that sort of shocked a lot of people, that it was coming so soon. Like, we knew the show existed. We knew that they had Oscar Isaac in the main role, you know, things like that. But you know, we knew about the Hawkeye series for a year. We knew about WandaVision for a year. You know, we knew about all the, not the Phase 1 TV stuff, but last year's content. We knew about that for a long time. Whereas Moon Knight was really only confirmed, you know, to be in production midway through last year. So they really sort of got, you know, in the thing there. So we do get a trailer. And then we have the poster, and yeah, March 30. So the series is meant to be 6 episodes, not a full thing by any stretch of the imagination. But we'll just pop the trailer on.
Hello and welcome to Staying Awake.
I have a sleeping disorder. I can't tell the difference
We'll just turn that up
between my
hopefully
waking life and dreams.
Hello and welcome to Staying Awake.
I think I'm losing it.
We'll catch you on. You're bloody useless, Stevie.
Stephen. I can't tell the difference between life and dreams.
Thank you.
Lost the contact lens.
Hope you find it.
Thanks. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're alive. What's wrong with you, Mark?
Why did you call me Mark? It must be very difficult. The voice in your head. Shut up! There's chaos in you. Embrace the chaos.
So there you go. That's the trailer for Moon Knight. Now, In the trailer we get introduced to Stephen Grant. He doesn't like to be called Stevie, but he is one half of the people that live in the body. So he suffers from dissociative identity disorder, and Mark Spector is the other half of that. And Mark is a mercenary. So you've got mild-mannered Stephen on one side, mad mercenary Mark on the other. And together they make up Moonlight. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic and mix that they've got going on, which, you know, I wouldn't have pegged as anything big, but, you know, that's what they've done. They've managed to do it that way. How it turns out, who knows? We'll have to wait and see on that one. It could be something pretty spectacular, though. And let's be honest, Marvel do know, you know, what they're doing with this sort of thing. Something else that was announced this week from Calypso Media. They're the folks that do Tropico, you know, Port Royal, Railway Empire. So they're publishing a new tennis game called Match Point Tennis Championship. Match Point being one word. You know, these are the you know, Nick Kyrgios is confirmed, and a few others as well. Who have we got? We've got Gabriel Muguruza, Andrei Rublev, Kasper Rudd, Hubert Hurkacz, I can't pronounce that. And look, there they are. Right, so read. But what I thought was interesting is, we'll just have the trailer play here while I talk, is that this game is actually being made in Melbourne. It's being made by Taurus Games. Their last release was, I want to say, Addams Family, but it wasn't. It was Hotel Transylvania. They made a Hotel Transylvania game. You know, and they've done a few games like that over the years as well. So, but yeah, so they're doing a tennis game, and what I find to be sort of really interesting is that there's two. I say two, right? We have one existing series with AO Tennis, which is Australian Open Tennis, and now we have the second one in Match Point Tennis Championship. There are obviously other tennis games around, but they're not all realistic. They're, you know, arcadey, or they're cartoony, or they're, you know, very stylized in some form. But what's interesting about this, let me scroll down here to the screenshots, is that, you know, this is a full realistic tennis simulator. You know, depending on how you hit the shot, it will react differently. You know, Uniqlo, Nike, and there was another brand. You know, they're all licensed in there. They're getting, you know, the world number 3 for the men's is in there. You know, so they're getting proper athletes in. But what's interesting about this is that this is now the second realistic tennis game in existence, and it is also made in Melbourne, because AO Tennis is developed by Big Ant in Melbourne as well. So yeah, I just thought that was a little interesting that, you know, we've got, you know, essentially two mainline tennis series, and they're both developed in Melbourne, Australia, which is a testament to how much Melbourne loves its sport. You know, they say it's the sporting capital of Australia, and B, just, you know, how much passion that they have for tennis, because, you know, they're doing tennis games down there like you wouldn't believe. Obviously, Big Ant are doing other things. They've just done a cricket game. You know, they've done a few other things over the years as well. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. You know, that's what they're doing with it. It is due out in sometime in the year. We don't have a release window. We don't even have a quadrant of the year. But it's coming to all of them. So Switch, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, which is, you know, a very, very welcome, you know, thing that they're hitting all the platforms. Just gonna steal a drink here. So something that honestly I wasn't expecting released overnight, and that's the release date for Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. So its release date is April 5. So the game was initially debuted back in June of 2019 during the Microsoft or the Xbox E3 showcase. I got to see it behind closed doors, and then I got to speak with the game director back then about it. It's on a new engine. They're changing viewpoints and a lot of things, and to sort of learn what they're aiming for. The game was never dated, didn't have an actual physical, an actual street date, but they were aiming for early 2020. That slipped to late 2020. Then that slipped to 2021, and then 2021 slipped to 2022. Now they did say spring 2022 for the north, which means autumn for us. So they are currently booked in for that window, but we'll see what happens. Now obviously the big thing with this one is it plays through all 9 of the episodes. So Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, New Hope, or just Star Wars if you're being correct, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. Now I do have to point this out. When I spoke with the director, I said, will you be doing other movies, or are you doing other things? And they said, no, just the 9 titled movies. And I said, okay, but there is DLC packs that will be available to buy separately or through the deluxe edition, which will give you content themed to The Mandalorian, Rogue One, Solo, Bad Batch, and more. Now, they haven't said what the more is, but the only other 2 things they've got are either Clone Wars, Rebels, or the Book of Boba Fett. So, and Resistance. I keep forgetting Resistance because it wasn't that good a show. That's why I keep forgetting Resistance. So there's 4 other shows that they could pick from, and they've said they got 2. They got six in total. We know 4 of them. So it's, a 1 in 4 chance that, something will get picked from that list. There is a nice lengthy overview trailer, but it does go for 6 minutes. So I'll pop the story in the chat, and then if you want to go, have a watch of that video, it is in there. It does highlight the fact that, you can fly from planet to planet. You can, chart a course and go where you sort of want. It's not totally open-ended. Like Luke Skywalker can't fly to Naboo because he was never there. In the free play, in the free roaming area, 100% you can do that. But for the generic story missions, you're sort of sticking with the ones that your character is involved with. All right, so but that's something that's a bit interesting. It's not necessarily going to be for everyone. The Lego games generally aren't, but this one is. They're changing everything, so it's now like a third-person style. In terms of combat, you can fly around from planet to planet. You can get in a ship, fly from one part of a planet to another. Now it's not doing every story beat from all the 9 movies. It's basically doing like 3 or 4 big chunks of each movie. So the very first one is called Negotiations, which is where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fail to convince the Trade Federation to abandon their blockade of Naboo, and then they sneak onto these ships and down to the surface. I don't know how much of that is going to be, part of the game itself, but that's sort of what the first chunk is. And there was another clip of the Queen's ship landing in Coruscant, which is what happens after they pick up Anakin on Tatooine. So it's entirely possible that there is, something on Tatooine, maybe something on Coruscant, and then the final battle, sort of breaking it up that way. But, we have to wait and see. Something that they did that did shock them is the initial reveal trailer was all what they call mumbles. So it wasn't anyone talking. It was just like Darth Vader going, and apparently everyone was like blown away by that. So there is actually a cheat. I say cheat, it's a cheat where you can enable mumble mode, where basically you cut out the spoken dialogue and everyone just mumbles and pantomimes their actions, which is something that will appease long-time fans of the series. It may not appeal to everyone, but so be it. That's the way these things work. But for those who want the spoken dialogue that is in there, something to note too is it's not like The Hobbit. It's not like The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. When they started cutting the dialogue out from those movies, this is more akin to, they're getting actors in to record lines. So the Yoda actor is Tom Kane, who is now unfortunately retired. Well, unfortunately, he suffered from a severe stroke and is now retired from voice acting. So this is one of his final roles in the industry. So they're getting actors in to do the various things. Whew. Also this week we got a new trailer for Horizon Forbidden West, which showcases more of the characters and the story that people can look forward to. Now, I'm not going to play it here because there are some new characters and some explanation on some threats that Aloy has to deal with that could be a little spoilery. So again, one of those things where, if you don't want to know anything, we are a month away from release. So I'll throw the story in the chat. The trailer's in there. I'm not even going to scroll down to show the new key art that is available for the game, because that does have characters in there that are, but again, potentially spoilery. So it's one of those things where if you want to avoid everything, don't go looking at it. One thing that I will say is obviously Ashley Birch is back as Aloy. Ashley's biggest other role is as the voice of Tiny Tina. So she's out in February for a game, and then she's back in March for another one. Lance Reddick is also back in this game. He was in the first one as sort of a bit of a hologram at points, and he's back. Lately, his most well-known role is the concierge in the John Wick movies. So the guy behind the counter that checks John Wick in to the Continental. And Carrie-Anne Moss is in the game as well. So, yeah, it is an interesting one. As I said, the game is out on February 2025? Yeah. And obviously the Forbidden West is, San Francisco-y sort of area of the US of A, which, then sort of helps establish where the game is set. Because, for some people, they may not have remembered that. Oh, all right. Something else that we knew was coming. We didn't know when we're going to get the details, but, we knew it was coming this month. WWE 2K22. We knew it was coming in March. We now have a release date. It's coming on March 11. When it does release, it will be for PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. There is no Switch version this year. So whatever the last one was for Switch, I think it was 2K19, maybe 2K20. No, I think it was 2K19. I don't think we got one after that on Switch. But regardless, that is the last of them for Switch, unless they do a unique version, which is highly unlikely. Don't expect any more WWE for Switch. Obviously, Rey Mysterio is the cover star for the game. There is obviously a big trailer that it pokes a bit of fun at some of the various aspects of how they may make a game like this, and we'll put that on in a moment. We've got that ready to go. Something that will appease many fans of the sport is that there is now my GM mode for the game. So if you're an NBA 2K player, you'll know my GM, my player, my faction, my team, my whatever they call these things. But this is the first time the WWE series is getting that. So you'll be able to, as you can see here by the image, you can say, okay, these are the people in the opening match. These are the people in the, the mid. These are the people that are, that's the headline of it. This is what people are coming to see. You can then simulate the match. You can just have it play out and then get the results back. You can spectate it, so you can actually watch the computer play. So you can actually get like a full, immersive experience of watching, some wrestling at home, or you can actually play the match yourself. All right, but you get to control every aspect. You get to control who's doing what, when they're doing it, and all that. In addition, the My Faction mode is there, where you're basically, there's WWE is one of them, NWO is another one. There was another brand that got pulled into WWE at some point as well. But you're basically starting up, Jim's Wrestling Federation, and then you're building it up from scratch. So then there's all these modes as well. Here's The Rock standing with nobody. Obviously not, that's John Cena. Now this is where it's a 2K game, and unfortunately they're milking this whole cross-generation thing. So the standard game, the PC version will probably be a little bit less, but the standard game is $110 Australian, no matter which console you're getting it on. Right? If you have a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One now, and you plan by the end of the year to have the next gen, you need to buy either the cross-gen digital bundle, which means you need to go digital day one, or you buy the deluxe edition in stores. If you buy the cross-gen bundle, it's $125. This does not apply for PC, obviously, because PC is just one platform. The deluxe version comes with both, so you can get it either on Xbox One now and an Xbox Series X later in the year. But you then get an Undertaker pack, you get the game early, so you get on March 8 and a bunch of other stuff. And then there's the WWE 2K22 NWO 4 Life Edition, which includes everything from the deluxe pack and a whole bunch of extra content, but it's $180. Now, I will admit this, whenever we do a review, we put it, if the code's provided by a company, we say, review code provided by 2K. If I was buying these games, I would not be paying $180 for digital content for a game that it's not my type of game to begin with, but $180 for pure digital content and nothing else makes very little sense. Not saying that there's, no reason not to buy it if it came with stuff like there is for Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. There is a deluxe edition, and it, as I said, comes with extra content, but it also comes with a little Lego minifig, and it's an exclusive one. You can't get that anywhere else. So something like that is very cool, but then you have to sort of, weigh up your things here. But $180 for, My Faction Evo cards and alternative attires. There's not even like you're getting extra fighters, extra people that you can, pump up your general manager team mode with, or your faction with. It's just a different look for these other characters you can get normally anyway. How that plays out in the long run, who knows? They also have their super card game, which is their sort of trading card game that they have as well. But I'll throw the story link here in the chat if you want all those details. But let's have a look at this trailer for the game.
I haven't seen anything like it.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Alexa. Yo, Riddle.
We got it. Big E, you take the hit this time.
Come on. Yes, good job. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Pops, really? Hijo, ya tú sabes.
I am the best.
Hey, it's just a play test.
We're going to change the angle here so they can really feel the hit.
Yeah, I totally agree.
That's my sword. Hey! Can you keep it down?
my sword.
So obviously one of the big things for the game this year is that it is essentially brand new. It is a brand new game engine. It's brand new controls. It's brand new animations. They essentially scrapped everything from 2020, which was the last one they released, which was, I should say, it wasn't great. No, it wasn't 2020. It's 2019. Released in 2019, sorry. It was not a great game. It was buggy to begin with. It just didn't feel right to play. It felt like trying to control a tank. So yeah, they rebuilt everything from the ground up. As I said, we've got 2 months or so before the game is out. So expect to see a lot more about that in the lead up to then. The last sort of news story that we're going to get to before we get into the big news of the week is that the Cuphead Show is set to debut on February 18 on Netflix. Obviously, this is based on the game. So you got Cuphead and Mugman, and we've got, here we've got a cast. Wayne Brady was the one that was confirmed a while ago. And it does feature that same art style that the game is known for, which is based off the very early, 1920s, 1930s, animation style from back in the day, which is what they like to call it, the pie eye look, because their eyes all have that sort of pie shape where they've got that sort of slice missing. I suppose for a gamer you might call it Pac-Man eyes, right? So that is sort of what the look is for it. And again, we do have the trailer for it, so let me bring that up. And then let's just have a look here at the trailer and enjoy what they're offering.
Mugsy, what we need is a little fun and adventure.
Con evil. Cuphead, I'm not so sure.
You know what I do when I'm not so sure? I double down.
What does that even mean?
Let me introduce you to some friends of mine.
When they run.
Roll the dice! It's time for a double down!
I hate those cups.
You guys want an evening you'll never forget?
You two are nothing but trouble.
We love trouble!
We do?
Well, if you're looking for fun,
Yes, we're looking for fun!
then a pack of heebie-jeebies. Let's go! Welcome to the Cuphead! Welcome to the Cuphead! Welcome to the Cuphead Show!
I'll get that cup!
Head?
Oh, shut up!
So yeah, there is 10 episodes for it. I don't know the length of them. I assume it's probably going to be 22, 23, 4 minutes sort of long. Whether or not it's one continuous story or they're treating it like most sort of old school animations where they're, maybe 2, 10-minute shorts in there, or maybe even, 3 7-minute shorts. I don't know. But, it is sort of interesting that the game has spawned this series of content with this show. I'm looking forward to watching it, mostly because I'm a big fan of that style of animation. So it is obviously something that is very cool for me. But now, obviously, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, and that is Microsoft buying up Activision-Blizzard for $68.7 billion US dollars, or roughly 96 billion Australian dollars. So they bought Bethesda. So just to put things into context, Bethesda is the sort of game development part of ZeniMax Media. ZeniMax is the parent company of Bethesda that was spun up in order to sort of put a clear break between them, so the people at Bethesda could just focus on making games, and the people at ZeniMax could focus on ensuring they had the money and the means to make the games. It is still the same company, but ZeniMax is the parent company, very much like Alphabet is the parent company to Google, right? Google was the company for years, but with Google themselves, and then the phones, then YouTube, and all the other bits and pieces Google started buying up. Rather than everyone just saying, oh, it's all Google, they started up a parent company to it to oversee everything, and then sort of left the divisions on their own. That's what happened with Bethesda, and that's what happens with Activision, right? We say Activision, but we mean Activision-Blizzard, because that's the company that owns all of it, all right? So that's putting that into context. Now, when Xbox didn't buy Bethesda, and they're not buying Activision-Blizzard, it's Microsoft. When Microsoft bought ZeniMax Media, including Blizzard, id Software, Tango Gameworks, Arcane, all that, right? It was $7.5 billion in the US, right? And that gave them 8 additional studios, 2 mobile developers, the rest were console and PC, right? They have now spent roughly 10 times that amount. Probably, we'll say 9 times actually, but they spent, 9-10 times the amount of money to buy Activision Blizzard. Now, the actual worth of Activision Blizzard when the deal was announced was apparently 52 billion. So they're paying a good premium above what the company's value was in order for this deal to go through. Now, Phil, via the Xbox Wire, put out a big statement. But the one sort of big thing that, we need to take note of is, as a company, Microsoft is committed to our journey for inclusion in every aspect of gaming among both employees and players. We deeply value individual studio cultures. We also believe that creative success and autonomy go hand in hand with treating every person with dignity and respect. We hold all teams and all leaders to this commitment. We're looking forward to extending our culture of proactive inclusion to the great teams across Activision Blizzard. So there's sort of 3 parts to this news. The first is that, Microsoft bought up Call of Duty, Diablo, StarCraft, the Tony Hawk game lights. They bought up so many IP and so many studios. And then there's that whole issue, is a nice way I can say it, of the systemic sexism and toxic culture that Activision Blizzard have unfortunately been, pushing for years. Obviously, last year it came to a head when the state of California put forth a lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, and then that basically kicked over the hornet's nest, and now everyone's coming out saying, hey, it's not just these people in this studio, it's not just this location, it's across the business. And then the third thing is, obviously, some people are concerned that this will give Microsoft a monopoly on game developers. So let's sort of break it down by the 3 parts. The first is obviously the amount of studios that they have bought. Now, there is not a lot of studios that Activision own. In terms of actual studios, they own very few compared to companies like Ubisoft. Ubisoft have far more people working than Activision do. Activision have roughly 10,000 folks across the board, in their studios, whereas Ubisoft have over 4,000 in one location up in Montreal. So Ubisoft definitely have more staff, and more studios for said staff, but Activision still are not small on their own. So if we have a look at this, as part of the deal, part of buying Activision Blizzard, they get all the Activision studios, all the Blizzard studios, and all the King studios. King being the mobile developer, things like Candy Crush and things like, games like that. Now, a division that most people don't recognize is Activision Shanghai, because they made Call of Duty Online, which was a Chinese-focused version of Call of Duty, was basically Warzone, but without the Battle Royale, a decade or so ago. With the popularity of Call of Duty Mobile, this game has now been decommissioned. They took it offline last year. So we don't know what they're working on now, but, it's not, unfortunately, and all the things they've brought out, they haven't mentioned Activision Shanghai because it's part of the Activision brand itself. But they are a development studio. Now, Beenox is one that they got. Beenox did some work on the Skylanders games for a while. They also made a couple of Spider-Man games back in the day. So after the Spider-Man movie games, Spider-Man 1, 2, and then 3, they did a few Spider-Man games as well. They also did some Guitar Hero stuff, so they did like the Metallica spin-off. I think World Tour was them as well. So they've done a few things. But then recently they remade Crash Team Racing. So Nitro Kart was them. This is going to be a trend for this sort of article, but essentially every studio that wasn't making Call of Duty titles or assisting with Call of Duty before is now on Call of Duty. So hopefully once this deal goes through, these studios get pulled off that and they get to make other things again. Now Demonware, they are a studio, but they're not a studio that makes content specifically. They're more on the network side of things, so allowing for integration of modes and things like that to work. So this is the group that Activision rely on to make sure you can play Call of Duty online. Okay, they don't lead that development, but this is sort of what they lead in for. Okay, Digital Legends Entertainment. It's a mobile studio. It's a recent purchase for them. They haven't released anything under the Activision banner yet. They did have a game called Respawnable Heroes that was out for a few years. Literally, the game went offline a week ago. So they finished it up. They're not doing anything else publicly yet. But they also, back in the day, they made Battlefield Bad Company 2 for EA. This is long before mobile gaming became a big thing that it is now. This is in the earlier days when companies started looking into making mobile games that could mimic sort of a console experience. This is one of the very early ones. Unfortunately, the controls were just not quite there for it, but they still did some good things. High Moon Studios is another developer that unfortunately lately has been stuck supporting Call of Duty. But a few years ago they released the Transformers Cybertron series, so War for Cybertron. I can't think what the other one was called. They made Transformers games. But again, I said here, 200 or so members of the studio, they keep working on Call of Duty. They keep getting forced on a Call of Duty. Not that there's anything wrong with Call of Duty, because, it is a good series, but, it used to be Infinity Ward would make a game, and then the next year would be Treyarch, then the year after that would be Infinity Ward, right? And then they brought in Sledgehammer Games to help Infinity Ward out, then Sledgehammer got to make their own game after that. So you had 3 studios making Call of Duty games, and they had 3 years to make the game. But for whatever reason, Activision management decided that wasn't enough, so they started throwing High Moon Studios and Raven Software and Beenox Software and Toys for Bob into this mix as well. That's what Ubisoft do. Ubisoft will have a game being made in Montreal, and they'll have all the leads and all the developers in Montreal working on it. But then they'll have like Ubisoft Pune in India, or maybe Ubisoft Leamington Spa in the UK working on it, to keep the development going 24/7. Activision Studios aren't worldwide. Most of them are based in the US, so it makes very little sense, for them to be doing it this way. What High Moon Studios would work on next, who knows? The Transformers rights are probably not with Activision anymore. But, they're a very talented group of developers, so hopefully they can get off Call of Duty on something else. Infinity Ward, that's where the Call of Duty series was created. There's no way they're not going to do anything but Call of Duty. Yeah, the problem is, Tabs, the Call of Duty blender doesn't smooth things out. It still has giant chunks in the mix. So, Another studio that unfortunately has been thrown into the Call of Duty blender, if you will, is Raven Software. Raven Software, back in the day, and I say back in the day, we're going back late 90s, early 2000s, they were the ones that picked up the Star Wars Jedi Knight series. So Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast, and Star Wars Jedi Academy with them. They had their Soldier of Fortune series, which was their own FPS series that these guys created themselves, and they alternated between Soldier of Fortune and making Wolfenstein games for id Software. So Activision for a few years were publishing Wolfenstein games, which was a big deal back then because that was the only sort of thing that id were making. Activision were also the publishers of Doom 3 back then. So the fact that these guys now, they're the ones that remastered Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2. Not the rumoured one that's coming this year, but the one from back in the Xbox 360 days. They've been stuck working on Call of Duty now for a decade. And Raven Software are unfortunately, they're also one of the teams that are currently striking from Activision because of the conditions that they're being forced to work in. So with any luck, the whole Xbox deal means these guys can stop making skins and guns for Call of Duty and start developing new and original content again. Sledgehammer Games, they just led development on Vanguard. They just came out. They got spun up to make Call of Duty games. That's what they're going to keep doing. There's no thing for there. These guys also have a studio here in Melbourne, in Australia. So if you are looking to make Call of Duty games, they're always looking for staff in that studio. So who knows? Have a look. Maybe you'll have the skills that they're looking for. Solid State is a relatively new mobile developer. So this is the second mobile developer that Activision owned themselves. And they've not released a game yet. There is talk that these guys will be working on the Warzone mobile experience. So we've got Call of Duty Mobile, and then they're looking to do a Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. It's not publicly confirmed, but that's what a lot of the rumours and sort of backroom talk is pointing at. Whether or not they do that or they do something else now, it's unknown. But as I said, they're a relatively new studio, so anything's up in the air for them. This is probably the one that hurts the most. Toys for Bob, they were the creators of the Skylanders series. So they're not creators of Spyro, that's Insomniac, but the Skylanders sub-series of the Spyro adventure is them. I'm making myself old again, but years ago they also made a game called Disney Skateboarding, where it was basically Tony Hawk but with Disney characters. So Pumbaa from The Lion King would skate on like a piece of timber, stuff like that. Their most recent thing is they did the Skylanders, the Spyro Reignited trilogy was them, and they also then did Crash 4 It's About Time. Skylanders wasn't, Spyro wasn't these guys. These guys did the Crash remaster. Then they did the whole new Crash Bandicoot 4 title. It did pretty well sales-wise. It did come to everything in the end, but for whatever reason, Activision said, "Hey, cool, you made it. You made your game. No more. Back to Call of Duty for you." What are you going to do? Treyarch. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. I never played Skatebird, but just looking at the trailers, the levels just looked too large and too bland. There just wasn't anything in them to make them interesting. From what I saw of it, maybe if I play it, it might be different, but it just doesn't appeal. And the final studio that Activision own though is Treyarch. Treyarch, they were the ones that did the Spider-Man game, so Spider-Man 2, which people for years said was the best Spider-Man swinging mechanic around. That's where it came from. It came from Treyarch. Treyarch, they were doing Call of Duty games before the Modern Warfare series spun up. So Call of Duty Big Red 1, which was the Call of Duty 2, but for consoles, was these guys. So Call of Duty 2 was PC back in the day only. And then these guys made a console version essentially of it. It wasn't 1-to-1, but it was sort of the console version of the PC experience. And they were doing that. Then they went to Spider-Man. Then they came back to Call of Duty. Then back to Spider-Man. They sort of alternated that way, and it worked for them. But then Call of Duty became the juggernaut that we know it to be. And after World at War, they went on to the Black Ops series, and then they got locked into doing the Call of Duty stuff. So this is their off year. So they did Black Ops 4, not last year, the year before. Was that them? I'm drawing a blank now. It's not their year. It's Infinity Ward's year this year. So who knows what they're going to do. Blizzard is a little different. Blizzard don't have team name, like location names. They just have them as Team 1, Team 2, so on and so forth. And each team seems to be dedicated to... Well, COD 3 back in the... I keep saying back in the day. Back in the day, Call of Duty 3 was just more World War II stuff, and people were kind of over it. So, World at War was spun up after Call of Duty 3 by Treyarch to take things into a different direction. But they didn't know Infinity Ward were basically rebooting the series in the modern day with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. So it kind of just, we got Modern Warfare, which was incredible, and we sort of went back half a step with World at War, and then we went back forward again with Modern Warfare 2. So it was an interesting concept for them to sort of sneak through. Excuse me. It's a very hot cup of tea still. But yeah, I mean, Vicarious Visions got rolled into Blizzard. Now they are the studio that did the Diablo 2 remaster, because they've proven themselves to be very proficient. But maybe once the deal goes through, they'll be spun back out into their own team, and they can start making their own original content again. World of Warcraft team, they make World of Warcraft. They're always going to make World of Warcraft. Team 3 does Diablo. I've sort of, one of those, funny little tidbits is that Rod Ferguson, who was at Epic many years ago and sort of oversaw the development of Unreal Engine 3, he then sort of stepped in to help with the development of Gears of War. When Microsoft bought the rights to the Gears franchise from Epic, they spun up a studio. I say spun up, they rebranded a studio from Black Tusk into the Coalition. Rod Ferguson came on board as sort of the caretaker of the Gears franchise to keep that series going there and keep everyone sort of on brand as to what Gears was. He left like 2 years ago, just before or just after Gears 5 released. That is true. If they end up at Team 16, they can't have a Team 17. So technically Team 17's name is Team 17 Ltd. That's what it's written as. So they could technically get away with it. Who knows? But yeah, so Rod Ferguson was at the Coalition overseeing Gears. He left to go to Blizzard to oversee Diablo. Why he left, who knows? Whether it was just he wanted a change of scenery or he wanted, to work on something different. No idea. But yeah, he's technically now back with Xbox. So it's kind of funny, in the way these things sort of work. And sort of the guy leading Blizzard right now, Mike Ybarra, he was at Xbox for many years. He left because, he wanted to do something different. And now he's kind of somewhat back at Xbox. And Team 4 is Overwatch, Team 5 is Hearthstone. So they've all sort of split up into different ways. And obviously King are large, but they're not split up. They just have a lot of people in sort of the one area. And the reason why I was going on this sort of tangent showing off all the teams that they have is because with the ZeniMax Media team and then the team for with all the stuff that Xbox had been buying up previously, so Playground Games, Compulsion Games, Undead Labs. If I bring this up, so this was made by a Twitter user named Coralbolt. So the top row it starts it's alphabetical, and sometimes obviously 343 is the first because you always put numericals before the alphabet. But if we look through this, they've got Beanox here with Crash. So they picked up Blizzard, picked up High Moon, Infinity Ward, King on the top row. And then on the bottom row, they picked up Raven, Sledgehammer, Toys for Bob, Treyarch, as part of the thing. So these are now technically, once the deal is finalized, because it's not finalized yet, but these are all the studios that Xbox will essentially own, or Microsoft will own, as part of their acquisition bundle. And let's be honest, they're probably not done. There's probably a handful of small studios they're looking to add to their collection, at some point. So, yeah, I just think it's very interesting that they have so many studios. But even if you look at that graphic, Raven, Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward, High Moon, and Treyarch, so 5 are all featuring Call of Duty assets, because that's what they make now. They make Call of Duty content. So, in an interesting sort of turn, Phil Spencer, once this deal completes, or maybe it's not once it completes, but as of the announcement, it's not Xbox that he's the head of anymore. It's now Microsoft Gaming. He's the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, reporting into the CEO of Microsoft as a whole, Satya Nadella. He has committed to honoring all the existing contracts for PlayStation exclusive content, similar to how they did it with the ZeniMax deal with Deathloop and the upcoming Ghostwire Tokyo. And then, PlayStation have said, they came out today and said the same thing. We expect these deals to be honored. That's all they really said. They didn't say much more than that. But an interesting thing. So let me go back. Let me take a half step back. When Microsoft bought ZeniMax, they committed to honoring all existing games that were on the platforms and any existing contracts. So the exclusivity, Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout 76 being on PlayStation, they're still getting the updates. So all the new content is going to them. The next gen enhancement is going to them. Right. So they're still doing all those things. Right. When people kept saying, hey, what about the next Elder Scrolls? Is that going to come to PlayStation? What about Starfield? Will that be PlayStation? Phil kept saying at the time, we're going to look at things as a case-by-case basis. That proved to be a misleading statement, because since then, Starfield, Redfall, and Elder Scrolls 6 are all confirmed to be Xbox Next Gen, so Xbox Series X and S, and PC only. No last gen Xbox, no PlayStation. There is a fair chance that these sort of things will be the same going forward for Activision. So Call of Duty Warzone will stay on PlayStation as long as that game exists, because, why not? It's going to make them money. They don't have to worry about too much, right? They're not spinning it up to start supporting it now. Same way that Minecraft is still around on those platforms. They're still supporting it. They still do active development for it. But going forward, there's very, very unlikely that we're going to see new content from the Activision-Blizzard portfolio hit PlayStation. If they make a Crash Bandicoot 5 or a new Spyro game, will they come to PlayStation? It's possible. If they do, then there's a fair chance we'll see them on Switch as well. Because they tend to be sort of evergreen titles that they do pretty well for a longer time. But it's one of those things where people kept saying it, early on with the Bethesda buyout. You don't spend $7.5 billion to not make the content exclusive to your platform. So it could be that once the PlayStation exclusivity deal runs out, in I think it's 2023 is the 2024 is the current close for that deal. past then, we may see the Call of Duty line hit, PlayStation as normal, but their content may be exclusive to Xbox going forward, or maybe it hits there a month first, and obviously all that content will probably launch into Game Pass on day one as well. The other thing too that is interesting is that there is a lot of legacy IP that that Activision own. If I can scroll down here, so we keep talking about Call of Duty and Crash Bandicoot, Diablo, Overwatch, but some of the IP they have: Blur, Caesar, DJ Hero, which is a whole thing. We're never going to see another DJ Hero, but it still exists. Same with Guitar Hero, Geometry Wars, Gun, which was made by Neversoft. It was their only non-Tony Hawk and Guitar Hero title that they sort of spent time on. Hexen, The Lost Vikings. We just got The Lost Vikings 1 and 2 as part of the Blizzard collection. We got Lost Vikings 1 last year, and then we got the update that added in Lost Vikings 2. Pitfall, which would be amazing to get a new Pitfall game. As I said, Soldier of Fortune, which was done by Raven. That's now an Activision IP. The old Tenchu games, not the more recent ones, but the older ones are owned by Activision. Time Shift, and then if you really want to get old school, Zork. Zork is as old school as you can get. So it's interesting with the amount of IP that Activision Blizzard own. We could see them spin up a new Pitfall or a new Guitar Hero and make that exclusive to the Xbox platform, or the Microsoft supported platform, I should say. And even if they say, hey, we're making a new Tony Hawk game, it's going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC. It'll probably be in Game Pass and supported on the cloud. So there's always ways to sort of to talk about these things. And as with a story via the Washington Post, Phil Spencer has said that he has plans to revive some of the old IP that Activision own. And then Bobby Kotick, the current devil leading Activision Blizzard, has said that there could be a revival of Skylanders, of Guitar Hero, because Microsoft have hardware manufacturing capabilities, whereas Activision had to outsource all that. They couldn't make that stuff themselves. They had to get other companies on board to do it. But Microsoft have, they make their consoles, they make keyboards, they make mice, they make headsets, they make cameras, they make 5 different types of computer, from Surface, the tablets, to laptops, to big laptops, to desktops, to ones that are the size of whiteboards for your corporate office. So they make a lot more hardware than most people envision. So there's a very high chance that they will be able to mass produce new Skylanders figures or new Guitar Hero controllers. Whether or not they do, who knows? Who knows what that... Yeah. The sheer number of old series that Activision have is kind of crazy. Especially because if I said to you, hey, what games did Activision release last year that were not ports or remasters, it's one. They released Call of Duty Vanguard. Right, we got Diablo 2, but that was a remaster. Right, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 got the Tony Hawk game, so did Switch. Right, but that was a port of the release from the year before. And then, we got Crash Bandicoot on Switch and next gen as well, right? But again, that was from the year before. So they released technically 4 things last year. So Crash, Tony Hawk, Diablo, and Call of Duty, but only one of them was a wholly original title released that year. The rest were all ports or remasters. So when you look at this list of what they have, King's Quest, there was an episodic series a while ago of King's Quest, and it didn't do so well because Activision didn't push it. Right, it's definitely a very old school IP, but they didn't push it in any way, shape, or form. Prototype, the folks that were Radical Entertainment, they made Prototype, which was sort of a somewhat spin-off of the Incredible Hulk game that they made, which before Spider-Man 2 was considered the best comic book adaptation game in existence. So there's definitely a lot of potential that they can do with these things. But at the moment, Activision-Blizzard, most of the Activision side, they seem content to just pumping out Call of Duty and sort of leaving it there. Excuse me. The other thing too is obviously Blizzard. Activision, for lack of a better term, have been trying to force Blizzard into being a cyclical studio, releasing one big game every 12 months. When, for as long as I've been around, as long as Blizzard have been around, that's never what they've done. Blizzard have always been hey, we're currently making this game, we're going to focus on this game, and we'll release it when it's ready. Warcraft 3, not Reforged, but Warcraft 3 Original was very much that sort of title. It got delayed a few times because they wanted to make sure when it launched it was as the best it can be, because especially back in those days you couldn't just develop a 4 GB patch and drop it, because that wasn't commonplace back then. World of Warcraft, when it launched, had a very buggy day one experience, but they worked at it, and then going forward all their content was tested in detail before it was released to the public. We haven't seen a new StarCraft. We had StarCraft 2 a while ago, and then there was a sort of they had a somewhat spin-off. It had Ghost in the name, but like a mini expansion pack that hit 6 years ago, and it started dropping sort of new maps and modes and things like that for StarCraft 2. But in terms of mainline games, there hasn't been one for a while. But the way Activision have tried to pivot Blizzard is to say, no, you need to start doing this. If you're going to have Diablo this year, next year you have to have, something for StarCraft. The year after it has to be something for Overwatch. So there's always the very good chance that going forward, that won't be the case. And then we come up to the final point, is that a lot of people are now complaining that this could be a monopoly of, Microsoft owning all the big studios, and then, holding basically content hostage to their platforms. That's not the case, and anyone who says that is being stupid. And I'm putting it out that way because they are being stupid. If you want to talk about monopolies, at the moment, the company that has the biggest monopoly on game developers is Embracer. Embracer have 111 game developing companies that work for them because they've bought them. Last year they spent $1 billion buying Gearbox. They in the past few years they've bought Gearbox, Saber Interactive. I'm just going to bring up the list because I can't remember now. That's how many they own. I just honestly cannot remember. Where that was Electronic Arts. There they are. So they own Gearbox, they own Volition, right? So there's the Gearbox stuff. They bought out Perfect World. So Star Trek Online, Neverwinter Online, that's Embracer. Dambuster, Free Radical, Volition, Warhorse, Flying Wild Hog, so the people making Shadow Warrior series, and the upcoming Trek to Yomi, that's Devolver. Published by Devolver, but the company is now owned by Embracer. Milestone, so they just did Hot Wheels Unleashed, but all the Monster Energy games, the MotoGP games, and their Ride series, right? So the only people making motorbike games is one company, and they make like 3 series, and they just cycle through them, right? That's owned by Embracer. Embracer spun up. So Embracer owned Koch. Koch spun up Prime Matter. Prime Matter are now publishing, Payday 3, The Last Oroku, Crossfire Legion, which is just entering into technical alpha at the moment. Kraken Academy is coming to Switch next month, and there's a demo out for it now. So that's what that was for. Vertigo Games is done. They did Sunshine, Arizona Sunshine, things like that. Saber Interactive, right? So Saber Interactive are the folks that brought Witcher to Switch. They're doing the next gen port. 4A Games made Metro. They own Asmodee as well. They bought out Asmodee, but Asmodee don't technically make video games themselves, so that's why they're not on the list. But they bought Aspyr recently, right? Aspyr are the ones that have brought all the Star Wars games back. So for PS4 and Switch owners and PC, we got Knights of the Old Republic, Jedi Outcast, Episode 1 Racer, all these sort of games started coming back because Aspyr were doing them, and now they're remaking Knights of the Old Republic 1 for PC and PS5. So Fractured Byte have made Brother of Tale of Two Sons. Not all these studios are massive. The New World Interactive, right? Insurgency is a series. It's a very realistic shooter, right? They own them, right? Shiver Entertainment, they're the folks that ported Mortal Kombat 11 to Switch and a few other games. Zen Studios, if you're essentially thinking, hey, I want to play a digital pinball game, Zen Studios are the ones making those. And then you get into THQ Nordic. THQ Nordic, they're doing, Outcast 2, Destroy All Humans, SpongeBob, Gunfire Games, so Darksiders, that's them. They did Remnant from the Ashes. So there's all these things. So Embracer have more developers working for them than Xbox, right? More developing studios than Xbox do. But when people say, oh, Xbox will have a monopoly on game content, it's like, well, no, they don't. They keep saying, oh, they're going to have Diablo, they're going to have World of Warcraft, they're going to have Call of Duty. It's like, okay, World of Warcraft is PC only. It always has been PC only. It's very unlikely that will now come to anything other, that it'll come to Xbox, right? Maybe Xbox will say, hey, no, look, investigate it, see if it's possible. Maybe that'll become the answer to Final Fantasy 14, right? Because Final Fantasy 14 is PC and PlayStation, but there's no Xbox version. But like the tweet that I had up before from Phil Spencer, there are a lot of people commenting about how the content, now you need to bring Spider-Man across from PlayStation to Xbox. It's like that's not remotely related. And I get the point of view of some people saying, hey, okay, Call of Duty's been on PlayStation for years and now it might not be. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but at the same time, Activision could have just said, hey, we're not going to release Call of Duty on PlayStation after 2 more years of development, and nobody would have said anything. Nobody would have said, oh, well, they would have complained, obviously, but nobody would have said, well, hey, why are you doing that? And that means I'm now going to get an Xbox to play it. Last year, we got a remake of Virtual Fighter 4, right, that didn't release on anything but PlayStation 4. Street Fighter 5 hit PC and PlayStation. And Capcom, Yoshinori Ono, the then lead for Street Fighter at Capcom, he's now left. He said to Xbox fans, if they want to play it, buy a PlayStation, right? So, at the moment, Marvel licensed out Spider-Man to Sony to say, hey, you can make a game, right? They're doing the same with Wolverine. People are complaining about that. It's like, these deals have always happened. These deals have always been around, right, to enhance the console. But it's not the console that makes the companies money. It's the games themselves. And Xbox are diversifying that front because they're not. You don't have to own the Xbox console to play the Xbox games. If you've got a PC, you can play almost every one of the more recent Xbox published titles because they're developed for PC at the same time as there's console. There's now like Halo Combat Evolved hit Xbox day one. Took like 3 years for the PC version to come out, and Gearbox were the studio that remade that game from the ground up for PC. Content-wise, it's identical, but they built it for the PC, right? So that's how it used to be back in the day, right? If you didn't have the Xbox day one and you wanted to play Halo, you were out of luck, right? But it eventually came to PC. But with Xbox Game Cloud, Xbox Cloud Gaming? Yeah, Xbox Cloud, they call it now. All right, as long as you've got a mobile phone or a PC or a tablet, you can play the Xbox games, even if you've never owned an Xbox console. So, you know, Microsoft won't have a monopoly on game developers. They just have big names at the moment. But again, if we look at the Activision, what Activision-Blizzard published last year in terms of the console and PC games, only one of them was wholly original. And honestly, most people wouldn't have cared about either Crash Bandicoot or Tony Hawk because they either got their fix the year before or those series don't appeal to them. And yet, Crash started out as a PlayStation icon, so the fact that he's now an Xbox icon is kind of there's a moment of hilarity in that. But it's one of those things where, if you want to play those games with those characters, you've got to go to where they are now, right? If I want to play a Spider-Man game, I can go and collect one of the old classic Spider-Man games that hit the PS2, the GameCube, or the Xbox back in the day and enjoy them, or I can pick up a PlayStation console and play the new Spider-Man from Insomniac, right? The Wolverine game, right? There is a Wolverine game out there, and ironically, that was developed by, I think it was Raven. It's either Raven or High Moon. And that was the one based around X-Men Origins Wolverine, that weird one. And that had the whole thing where, he'd have chunks blown off him, but then over time he would heal back, right? It was very cool for its time, right? But that was only made for Xbox and PlayStation. There was no PC release of that. And PC owners didn't get annoyed. Well, they did, but they didn't complain about how unfair it was that it wasn't being developed for them, right? It's just, that's the way the industry's always been. And it's not changing with this buyout, right? It's just now, because it's big name IP, that people are sort of raising a stink. Finally, I wanted to sort of touch on this point a little separately, and that is Switch. Now, with this buyout, yeah. Well, I mean, if you recall back in the day, that was I can't remember who made that now, but it was sort of an isometric Diablo-style dungeon crawler from memory. But that spun off to the... Oh, I can't think of the name now. They just did it. Nintendo just made one for Switch. It'll come to me in a few minutes. But they made that for Switch. They made, I have to look it up. Ultimate Alliance. That's what it was. So there was 2 Ultimate Alliance games for Xbox and PlayStation, right? And I think GameCube was that period of time when they released. And the third one in that series was made by Nintendo. It was made by Team Ninja for Nintendo and published exclusively for Switch, right? And it was one of those ones where if you wanted to play this game, you had to get that console. That's been the way it's been since day one. If you wanted to play Sonic games, you had to get a Sega console, right? When the PlayStation launched, if you wanted to play Final Fantasy, you had to go to PlayStation, okay? So it's always been this way. So anyone complaining about the fact that it's still going to be this way, it's just now bigger brands is missing the point of what a monopoly is. Anyway, my point that I was going to was with Switch. We're not going to see Call of Duty hit Switch. The last time we saw Call of Duty hit any Nintendo platform was Ghosts back on the Wii U in 2013. So, we're coming up on a decade of no Call of Duty titles on Switch. I've always thought the Modern Warfare series, so Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, just the campaigns would do really well on Switch, but, they've never made that happen. But what's interesting is that Cuphead eventually hit PlayStation, but it hit Switch very soon. And the Ori games, right? The Ori games are published by Xbox. So they're developed by other companies, but they're second-party developed products for Microsoft. But Microsoft said, no, you can put those on Switch, that's fine, right? And this isn't the first time that Microsoft have done this. Like, if you recall, when Rare was bought by Microsoft, they got bought out like 3 months before Star Fox Adventures released. Right, so everyone was like, "Oh, that's going to be the last game. We're not going to see any more of those games on a Nintendo platform from Rare." Not true. We didn't see any more on GameCube, right? But we got the Diddy Kong Racing for DS. We got a Banjo-Kazooie game for Game Boy Advance. We got a I was going to say Beowulf. It's not Beowulf. Dr. Wolf, Saberwolf. That's the one. There was a Saberwolf game, right, that Rare made that was for Game Boy Advance. And there was even an Age of Mythologies game for the DS, right? There was also, if you can Google and look up Halo DS, there was a prototype of Halo made for the DS at one point. So Microsoft are not opposed to putting their IP on other platforms. There has to be a value for it. And most of those games that I just mentioned post the Rare buyout were published by THQ. So it was Microsoft allowing the rights to be published by another company. Whereas lately with Cuphead and Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, if you go looking for those on the Nintendo eShop, the publisher is Microsoft, right? So they're still doing these things. They're still allowing for these companies to manufacture content and then release it on other platforms. But there's very specific reasons and rules behind it. Will we see any more Activision content hit Switch? It's very possible. Skylanders, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot. Was for the DS only back then. And honestly, anything would have been crowded out by Federation Force with how much Nintendo pushed that thing. But yeah, so with all the sort of the kid-friendly content that Microsoft have, as much as it is great that they finally have content that they can show, that they can say, hey, look, we have content that is suitable for dad with Forza and suitable for the kids with Crash Bandicoot. No parent buys an Xbox for their 7-year-old, right, to play, the two things. If a parent goes into an EB Games and says, "Hey, I've got a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 9-year-old," right? What platform do you recommend? The answer is they're going to get is Nintendo, right? You've got Mario, you've got Mario Kart, and all that. So there's a fair chance that Xbox will publish games on Switch still to be because that's where they're going to get the more return for their value, and that'll be the same for PlayStation. There will be games that will go to PlayStation. But it'll have to make sense for the platform, and it'll have to make sense for the the delivery of the content, because there's no reason just to push content out to a platform just to say it's on all the platforms, because we've seen companies do that and then they fail, right? So yeah, obviously there's still hey Magic, thanks for stopping in. So there's obviously a lot that still has to happen with this deal. It has to go through the regulatory commissions in both the US and Europe. Europe probably won't be such a big deal like it was with ZeniMax, because Activision don't have a massive headquarters in Europe like ZeniMax did. But the US government will have to go through and investigate all the bits and pieces and tick off all the boxes where apparent. I don't think there's going to be any reason for this deal not to go through. As I said, it's not a monopoly in the way that people go, oh, it's a monopoly is when one company owns more of a particular market than anyone else, and it's not that they own more developers. It's not they have more developers working for them. It would be that they are the only place where you can get games, right? So a monopoly for the supermarket industry, right, would be if you could only shop at Woolworths, except for like the 4 Coles supermarkets that were in the country. That's a monopoly, right? Woolworths having more stores in a town than Coles is not a monopoly. So people need to understand that before they start jumping on the bandwagon and claiming that Xbox buying Activision is a monopoly. PlayStation could turn around and buy, Square or Sega, right? There's nothing stopping them from doing that, or Capcom. It's not in their interest at the moment to do so. Jim Ryan, who's the president of PlayStation, is very he's not anti-Japan, but he's not looking for Japan. He wants to make PlayStation a global brand rather than Japan first, the rest of the world second, which is what it was for a number of years. The big example of that is the fact that in Japan, X is now confirmed and Circle is now back. Whereas in Japan, if you get something right, you get the Circle, and if you get something wrong, it's the X. Whereas here in the Western market, X is confirmed and Circle is back, because that's based on. Who knows why it's based on that way. But if you remember back to the old NES, it was B and A. It was the button combinations B and then A, because A was where there was the select was the confirm was. Oligopoly isn't great either. But yeah, so controller issues aside, PlayStation's looking to become more global. But they bought Insomniac recently for $400 and something million, which honestly was a steal for the amount of talent that studio has. And they recently bought Blue Point Games. They bought what was the other one they bought? I want to say Nexus. It was a Dutch studio that specialized in like PC support. So there's a few others that they've bought, and they look to be doing sort of what Microsoft did a few years ago. Is they're buying studios first, and this is just a case of them buying a publisher rather than a studio. Either way, that is a lot of talking. So there's a lot. Obviously, in that Xbox deal for Activision-Blizzard, and it will take time for it to process throughout the gaming infrastructure. Honestly, I'm of opinion that it's not going to change the landscape too much. Call of Duty is likely to stick around on all the platforms because it is such a moneymaker. Elder Scrolls and Starfield, Fallout, those RPG series from Bethesda will make them money, but they're not going to make them as much money as, Call of Duty will. So I honestly think that Call of Duty will stay multi-platform purely because it makes them money, right? They're going to get money anyway from sales on Xbox. But, if there's 80 million consoles that it can hit, right, with PS5 and Xbox Series X, and they get, $1 billion for that game for that year, it makes no sense for them not to release it on both. If they, just to spite people, sure, but I don't see them doing that. But yeah, that's the show. We went longer than I was thinking, like an hour and 15, but obviously that was the plan. And then Xbox or Microsoft went ahead and bought, Activision-Blizzard for $70 billion. So that was sort of, throughout my initial plan for the episode this week. That's the show. Obviously, we went through a lot of stuff early on with some of the other news, like Majora's Mask hitting Switch, NSO next month, Cuphead Show getting a trailer, Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga getting a release date finally. So yeah, we went through a lot of information. Didn't you the tennis player tabs? Are they streaming tennis on Twitch now? I don't think that's the case. But yeah, so a lot of things in the show. So if you did miss anything, it will be available here as a video on demand on Twitch. It will also be on YouTube as well, so you can catch it there. We will be back on Tuesday for the next segment of our Bond streaming series. That will be we are starting The World Is Not Enough. Sorry, Tomorrow Never Dies. I always get those two mixed up. So yeah, we're starting the next game in the Bond series on Tuesday, and then we'll be back at 7 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time next Friday for another episode of the Maxi Geek Show. So if you did watch live, thank you for watching live. If you missed it, replays are around. Otherwise, happy gaming, and we'll see you next week. Enjoy.